Mayor, whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting order. Please rise for a silent reflection and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Jen.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Tinkin?
Here.
Mr. Vorbach? Mayor Mechanico?
Here. I need a motion to approve the agenda with the two additions, two resolution additions, R 2014-38 and R 2014-39. Motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions on the agenda? Roll call, Chair.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yeah, here. Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. No presentation at this time. We do have a scheduled public hearing for ordinance number 2014-1. This is the capital ordinance, $175,000 to pay for some capital improvements. Anyone like to speak for or against this ordinance, please step forward and give your name and address. Seeing no hands, need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's- At this time of the meeting, we have public comment. You may,
Mayor, just so we're clear, that the motion was to close the
Close the
hearing.
public hearing.
It is now appropriate to have the motion for the ordinance itself.
thank you, I'm sorry about that. Need a motion
I'll make that motion.
and a second for ordinance number 2014-1.
I'll second.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment. You may step forward, give your name and address, and speak on only an agenda item. Agenda item only. Everyone's quiet time. Seeing no one step forward, need a motion to close the public comment.
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion items at this time. Now, we do have the council reports. We'll start with Mr. O'Brien. Do you have anything to report on the finance?
I do not at this time have anything to report.
Okay. Mr. Schuler.
No, I have nothing to report.
Mrs. King.
Yes, I have a couple of things. I have two letters that came forward. One is from the family of Mary Ann Budnick, who had passed away back in September, I think it was, or August. And the letter puts out, some very nice remarks about Patrolman Travis Ventimiglia for responding to the residents and trying to help out in saving Ms. Budnick, who was unconscious. And I just wanted to make mention that the family was very appreciative of all his help at that very difficult time. And then we have another letter from a Rosemary Gleason to the chief, thanking him and Officer Kenny for their work over on Ocean Road in, as she put it, guarding the different homes in the area while work was being done. The other thing I do want to mention too is the snowstorm. We did have some people who did not, unfortunately, remove their cars from the street and had to be ticketed, and I just want to emphasize that, our DPW guys do a wonderful job, but it is so much easier if the cars are off the street, and if there's any way that people can certainly comply with that. We don't have to do it that many times. Unfortunately, as I say, people do get ticketed, so, that's the way it goes. But please heed the reverse 911 calls and listen to what is said so that we don't have to go down that road again. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Yes, as far as the snow removal, A total of 124 overtime man hours were logged by our guys on the yard for snow removal on Tuesday, Wednesday, and January, the 21st and 22nd. Of course, that could change slightly, right, Jay? Did you
Yes.
say, was it more than that?
Just a couple of hours. It was not a
Okay.
substantial amount.
Equipment preparations began on Tuesday morning. Pre-wedding salting began upon completion of the scheduled garbage collection. Plowing activities began in the afternoon and as the snow accumulated and continued through the night into Wednesday. They used 10 trucks, the loader, the backhoe were utilized, plus 2 snow blowers for sidewalk clearing. Most of the roads were passable throughout the storm. But all were clear by 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and I showed up for work at 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and there was several people whose towns had not even cleared their that couldn't get into work because their towns hadn't cleared their roads in front of them. No complaints were received by the residents. The residents were generally cooperative with regards to moving their vehicles. The 911 message was broadcast just after 12 noon, reminding everybody to remove their vehicles. At 4 p.m., the superintendent of Public Works, Art Kerner, was going around to everybody to try and tell them to remind them to remove their vehicles. No major problems were experienced despite the fact that Jose, our DPW foreman, was out with pneumonia. So the guys were able to step up to the plate and make certain that everything got done correctly and without any. So kudos to the guys on the yard, DPW. They did a great job.
Good. Thank you.
Also, I would like to I do also want to say that the beautification committee met and they did vote for Deirdre Slattery Fallon as chair. And they will be meeting monthly, and they'll have them advertised to the public, so that the public can come to the beautification committee meetings. And they're going to get an agenda together as far as things that they would like to target getting done this year.
Thank you. Mr. Tipke.
And Mayor, I would also like to thank DPW for the good work they did with the snowstorm. I think we always make efficient use of our plowing operations, and they're always effective, so thank you very much, DPW. In terms of recreation, some of you may know that the Trendsetters run a lot of recreation programs for our seniors, but recently the Spring Lake Heights Recreation became in charge of some of the senior activities in terms of things like jazzercise and yoga. Trendsetters will still be involved in doing some other things, but as it stands now, Spring Lake Heights Recreation will be playing a much larger role in some of the senior recreation activities. Sean Heater is going to be heading that up, and I look forward to adding even more recreation activities for our seniors as we've done for our kids.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. As far as reports, notice, and correspondence, everyone had a chance to look at those, correct? Move on to the resolutions. We have Resolution R 2014-34, authorizing the extension of the Shore Municipal Alliance Grant. We need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Do you have any questions on the Shore Municipal Alliance? A roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2014-35, confirming appointment of Mr. Raymond Miller to the zoning board of adjustment. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Do you have any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
No.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
No.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
No.
Mayor, my tally reflects 3 no votes.
3 no votes on the mayor's. Thank you very much. Never cease to amaze me.
Can I make a recommendation at this point, because I know we need to get this committee filled? Is it,
We have people that volunteer their services, and you have come up here and you reject them. I just don't understand it.
Well, we
I
came
don't
to you,
understand.
Mayor, with recommendation. We came to you.
This is my recommendation. These people volunteer. It's a volunteer position, and the council actually rejects their volunteers. I don't understand it.
Counselor,
Someone has an explanation, please give
is
it.
the committee, I mean, is the council allowed to put forth recommendations now, or do we have to wait?
Not until a period of 30 days has elapsed.
Okay, thank you.
This time.
Is it possible to take an existing member of the zoning board and move them up?
It is possible. Is this, let me just take a look, this is a regular slot on the zoning board?
Yes, full position.
Because Owen Quinn is presently an alternate, and I would like to make a motion to move him up to a 4-year term.
That's possible, if council wishes to do that.
No,
But
if that's your
remember,
desire, but you
this
better,
is something that it's still subject to the mayor's nomination that the council then would provide their advice and consent to. So you technically wouldn't have the ability to make that motion. However, Mayor, you could nominate Mr. Quinn to be moved up from an alternate position to a regular appointee position.
I would love to move them up. I just don't want anyone to be embarrassed any more than they need to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I thank you for that. You-
Because usually, it's usually either someone who has experience or someone who is presently on the board, and, you know, you'd like to move them up. We did approach Mr. Quinn about moving him up, and I don't think he would have any objection to that.
So Mayor, it's at your discretion. Would you like to put that name forward? It's still within your ability during the first 30 days of the year.
Yeah.
So with that understanding, we would need a motion and a second by the council to act upon the mayor's nomination to move Mr. Quinn up from being an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment to be a regular member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
This is then on the motion to appoint Mr. Quinn
Owen Quinn.
to the regular member zoning board of adjustment. Mrs. Cynthia?
No?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
No.
Mayor, my tally reflects that passed.
Now, am I authorized to break the tie?
There is no tie.
There is no tie, Mayor.
It was 3.
It passed.
Oh,
It passed.
I'm sorry.
But now you have a vacancy among the alternate members.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Resolution R 2014-36, confirming the appointment of Donald Eisenberger to the zoning board of adjustment. Need a motion in a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Have any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Now, I hope the council noted that the two names there, was the people I nominated, there was no axe to grind or anything. I tried to be fair. Need a motion to move the bill to the finance committee.
I will make the motion to move the
I'll
bill to
second
the
it.
finance committee. That's my job, right?
We have a motion in a second. Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2014-37, approving the payment of claims on the January 24th, 2014 bill list. Motion in a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Do you have any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. At this point in the meeting, public comment?
Mayor, just before you move on,
gosh,
I got the 2 additional
Okay.
items.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Need a motion and a second for resolution R 2014-38.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Do you have any questions? Roll call, Jay.
And Mayor, just for the record, this is a resolution authorizing the cancellation of the designated tax sale certificate held by the borough. Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution number R 2014-39, authorizing tackling redemption payment. Need a motion and a second.
Make that motion?
I'll second it.
You have any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment. You step forward, speak on any item you like. Just give your name and address.
Good evening, Dr. Rankin from Smyrna Westwoods. I'd like the council to be aware and to make their constituents aware that we are now utilizing, we've been for some time, a Facebook page specifically for the Spring Lake Heights Police Department. And what that does is give the residents and anybody else who wants to know accurate, immediate, and up-to-date information about activity that's not only happening in our future, but that's happening right now. So when there's an accident at Old Mill and Warren, they'll be aware that's going to be shut down until investigation is complete. And then when the intersection is reopened, they'll be made aware of that also. Also has some public information, things like the snow ordinance will be in effect tonight, have your car removed. And then also some goodwill things like the Toys for Tots and other more community-oriented programs. But just something that's immediately updated for emergencies and traffic rerouting of that sort of thing, and that future information as well. Thank you.
Excuse me, Zach. Can you stay there for a second? Stay there a minute?
Yes.
I want to publicly thank Zach. A while back there, I was having problems, and I think he got a call about 2 or 3 in the morning from my house, and he came over and he set my nerves at ease, so him and Mr. Eddie Gunnell.
Yes.
I never got a chance to thank you, so I want to publicly thank you now. Thanks.
That's your tax dollar. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else like to speak?
Peter Murphy, Emergency Manager.
Come up closer to me.
Officer Rick actually said a number of things that I wanted to kind of point out, that social media has become such an inherent part of our lives, and not that I'm personally a big fan, but I can find myself checking 2 websites, as a matter of fact, Facebook pages. One would be the Spring Lake Heights Police Department, which I happened to learn about when recently there was an issue with a woman who turned onto the railroad tracks earlier this year. I'm a little more in tune to the sounds of the train, and thought the train had derailed. And when I got there, of course she was fine. The officer said, you know, had you checked the Facebook page, you wouldn't know. They were like right on it. So in case anybody had any questions. Another Facebook page that we should all try to keep up on, that does a lot, is the Spring Lake Heights Fire Department here. They have one as well. And while some information might be repetitive, there's one thing I did notice, that the fire department encourages everyone to try to keep the snow away from the fire hydrants clear. Now, I don't know if our town has any sort of caps that have flags, but the truth is, when we're asking volunteers to go out there in snow that's been, you know, frozen and slushed up from plows and everyone shoveling, it is not a good time. So to that effect, also the Department of Public Works, I was here numerous times in advance throughout the storm. This time I did fail to check in with the fire department like I had done in the previous one. And I have to say, I must really commend that curb-to-curb plowing was really great. Art Turner and Joe May actually went driving around door to door, seeing cars in the road, and were able to touch base with a number of residents, including remove their vehicles. I went around later because, as Art was saying, is that people were kind of shoveling some of the snow out to the street. And I had a chauffeur drive, and you know, when we saw people shoveling, we were just like, could you please try to put it, you know, on your lawn, you know, or something like that, so when you try to get out tomorrow morning and it's frozen, you won't get stuck. But that aside, I don't know if anyone's really aware is that when impending storms like this come in, our volunteer firemen leave their homes and literally camp out in that fire department to be ready and willing to serve the community. And I really hope that there's some way that council and the town, we can find ways to, I know that the fire district was dissolved, and I think there needs to be some more transparency on both sides there. But they do need things, and I'd like to find a way that people can work together to see that they get them. Having worked in the safety equipment business for a number of years, I can tell you that a mask will change and different requirements change all the time. These aren't people who are asking for things just for the fun of asking for them. And sometimes it's not always the lowest price, it's the best value for your dollar. And I can tell you that you can buy a $10 life jacket, and that's gonna hold you up. It's gonna turn you a certain way. Is it comfortable? A police officer, for example, wouldn't wanna wear that because it would restrict their movement. So there are things, and I'm hoping that we can find a way to help them fundraise to get the additional things that they need, because they are volunteers. And without them, hell, I want them coming to my house as quickly as possible, but to be able to do the job as safely as possible. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, need a motion to close the public.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, we do have the minutes, need a motion to approve the minutes from
January 1st, 2014.
January 1st, 2014. Thank you.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Do you have any questions? Roll call, Chair.
Mrs. Cynthia,
Abstain.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Am I supposed to abstain because I wasn't here, or?
No, you were here.
Abstain.
You were here for the Bureau.
What? Oh, for this, reorg, this wasn't for the last meeting? Okay, then yes.
You were,
Sorry.
These are from the reorg.
But generally, I
Tom,
say.
you were sworn in.
Mr. Schuler,
When in doubt,
I was giving
abstain.
that one.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Tink.
Yes.
I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The one thing.